All right, looks like we're in business this Monday morning. You are listening to Global Affairs Unfiltered with me, Jack Stockwell. I will be here for another hour this morning. Not another hour, for an hour. And speaking of that, I am changing my Wednesday lineup to 8 to 9 a.m. starting this Wednesday. I just do not have the time to put in 2 hours on a Wednesday morning. I am a lot of lifestyle changes showing up, and I have to cut back on my energy levels and my activities because I'm just getting tired. Okay, so there's enough belly aching. The future of my show I talked about a couple of weeks ago as to whether or not I just wanted to continue. The overwhelming number of nice comments that came in through email. I wasn't sure there was a whole lot of people left listening with all the interruptions we've had, although I have to admit the broadcast signal has been more continuous now without a lot of problematic interruptions over the last few months than it has been in the past for some time. So we're all grateful for that. And so I'll be around a while. I'll still be around a while. So man, what all the stuff that's going on. Yesterday, of course, was Flag Day. Somebody asked me that last night. I was with family last night. Somebody said, "Did you observe Flag Day today?" And I said, well, I was thinking more about Trump's 80th birthday and the phone call between he and Trump, or Putin. But no, I did not observe Flag Day. I did not have a flag where I'm located, where I live. You can't put up flags. It's part of the un-America part of Draper, where you're not allowed to display flags. I live in Draper. Part of Draper is patriotic, part of it is not. But we have been assured as of yesterday by the president that a deal is about to be signed to end the U.S. war on Iran. And I titled this on my stream, is this the 39th or the 40th? I forget. A lot more in-depth news groups out there than what I offer you. I can't decide whether this is the 39th or the 40th peace deal announced by President Trump. But looking at Al Jazeera's live update page reported the following at 2:45 a.m. this morning. They said this: Tehran has not yet taken a final decision on the framework agreement to end the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. A review of the memorandum and understanding's political, legal, and technical aspects is still ongoing at expert and decision-making levels. U.S. and Pakistani leaders forecast a Sunday signing of a long, elusive preliminary agreement to end months of fighting, but Tehran casts doubt over the timing. Yeah, I suppose so. President Donald Trump posted on Saturday, the deal with Iran is scheduled to be signed on Sunday, his 80th birthday, yesterday. Trump has suggested that the memorandum of understanding between the United States and Iran will be signed virtually. Now, the U.S. president's schedule has been posted for Sunday. There is no mention of a virtual signing ceremony. However, it could be added. Do you know why it's going to be virtual? Do you know if it actually happens? And it's not going to happen. But if it actually did, and why isn't it going to happen? Because Tehran's red lines have been crossed and they're not uncrossed. And until they're uncrossed, such as the IDF pulling out of Lebanon, which isn't going to happen, they're not going to sign any peace deal. But why would they insist on a virtual peace deal? Because the last two times negotiators for Iran got together for negotiators for the U.S.-Israel cabal were bombed and killed during the negotiating meetings by the United States. We've adopted the Israeli program of assassination. And wherever we can find leaders of the other side, wherever they're located, we're going to assassinate them. All the way back to Soleimani in President Trump's first term. And then we've been practicing the diplomatic program of assassinations for a long time. This is nothing new. So the Iranians are not stupid. They're not about to meet in person with anybody representing the other side because they know that they will be murdered. So anyway, Trump has suggested that a memorandum of understanding between the United States and Iran, we're going to do this through the internet. So a Qatari delegation is in Iran for consultations with Iranian officials on the latest developments related to the ongoing diplomatic process. And Tasnim, the Iranian news agency, said this actually early this morning, the Qatari delegation held talks with officials of Iran during its visit aimed at reviewing recent developments surrounding diplomatic efforts. This is all official talk here. The visit comes after one of the advisors to Qatar's foreign ministry traveled to Tehran last Wednesday for discussions and consultations regarding a draft memorandum of understanding intended to bring to the end the Israeli-U.S. war of aggression against Iran. So the Iranian foreign minister, Ismail Baghai, told the IRIB yesterday that this memorandum of understanding is not going to be signed as of yesterday. Quote, information about the exact time of signing the memorandum must wait. Although this will not happen tomorrow, the possibility that it will happen in the coming days is not excluded. So President Trump's Truth Social carried this plaintive appeal late yesterday. Quote, this morning's attack on Beirut, now remember, as soon as there was some real objective possibility that this could go through, Israel sent missiles, the air attack into Beirut. Just as soon, and that's what everybody's been saying. Of course, the one outfit, the one group of ne'er-do-wells that would stop this peace deal, of course, is going to be Israel. Because Israel doesn't want peace. Israel wants the end of Iran. So President Trump's Truth Social said this yesterday. This morning's attack on Beirut should not have happened, particularly on a special day when we're so close to a peace deal with Iran. Israel has the right to defend itself against threats. It doesn't mention Iran's right to defend itself against American threats. Excuse me, that's not in the quote. I added that. Israel has the right to defend itself against threats, but the attack it was responding to was very small and meaningless. Nobody was hurt, injured, or killed and should not disrupt this important process. We're very close to a deal that will bring peace to the region, including to Lebanon, and all sides should stand down. There should be no more attacks by any other party, including Hezbollah, against Israel. This could be the beginning of a long and beautiful peace. Let's not blow it. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Have you ever had an argument with somebody and you felt like you were arguing with a bag of rocks? Have you ever tried to sit down and get somebody to understand what your point of view is and the immediacy of any dangers or whatever else you see coming, and you might as well be arguing with the wall? I kind of see that in this deal that's going on here. It's like President Trump doesn't understand what's going on here. Iran is not about to sign a peace deal until the hostilities stop. Israel retreats and pulls its forces out of Lebanon. The U.S. pulls its forces out of the Gulf, opens up, stops the blockade. These aren't items to be addressed with a peace deal that the West sees. Iran sees these as obstacles to the peace deal. And until these things are done, you don't need to be talking about peace. It's the same thing in Ukraine. Until the Western powers stop supplying the Ukraine with weaponry and money, Russia is not going to stop its aggression leading up to the captivity of Kyiv and Kharkiv and Odessa. They're not going to stop. They're going to keep their onward march going as they get stronger militarily all the time. You know, I've had some people in my life that I'll tell you, it's like banging your head against a wall, and you're going to continue to bang your head against the wall till the wall falls down. Then there won't be any discussion. Well, interestingly enough, on President Trump's 80th birthday, he has a phone call with Vladimir Putin. This is just yesterday, and Yushakov, Putin's presidential aide, said the call lasted just under an hour. He said 55 minutes to be precise. It was not merely an exchange of, birthday pleasantries. It was, in fact, he said, friendly and candid. And Yushakov said that what the president and Putin talked about included key issues relating to the current international situation, the development of Russia-U.S. relations, possible future contacts between representatives of both sides. And regarding that, Yushakov said that they had agreed that Trump's special envoys, Zionists Witkoff and Kushner, who are currently deeply involved in the Iranian affairs, will come to Russia again in the near future. Now that begs the question, when the Iranians refused to deal with Zionists at the negotiation meetings, and by Zionists, of course, I'm referring to Kushner and Witkoff, why would the Russians bother with them? Anyway, Yushakov said this. Putin and Trump touched on the situation surrounding the memorandum of understanding being drafted between the United States and Iran. And here Yushakov reported that Trump hoped, quote, that the results of the difficult but ultimately successful negotiations could be announced today. That was yesterday, of course. And there were not negotiations successfully achieved yesterday. Trump acknowledged that the road to agreement has been arduous, with many obstacles encountered, and not only from the Iranian leadership. He expressed gratitude to Russia's involvement, and in particular for its proposals aimed at finding constructive solutions. Then Yushakov made clear that Putin understands that the root causes of the conflict remain to be resolved. What do you suppose those root causes of the conflict that remain to be solved are? See, here you have these two presidents talking to one another on the phone. Trump's talking about how his peace plan may, finally be signed as of yesterday. Iran is refusing any kind of meeting because they know they'll be assassinated if they show up. So it has to be virtual. But they're not even going to do a virtual thing until those red lines that were crossed are uncrossed. I've already mentioned what they are. I don't need to do it again. And so you've got Putin on the one hand, Trump on the other, on the phone, and you're listening in. You get to listen into this conversation. And if it were me, I would just be, I don't know if I would be banging my head against the wall, if I'd be pulling my hair out, or if I would be turning on the latest episode of The Three Stooges as some form of a distraction to take my mind off the pain of what I'm listening to. Putin said this, "For our part, we express satisfaction with the United States' apparent ability to curb the conflict, that they may have set the entire region ablaze and even expanded beyond the region." Aha! President Putin noted his readiness to keep working in favor of stabilizing the situation and handling deeply rooted issues that are still to be seriously addressed. Then Ukraine was discussed. And as Trump once again stressed the importance of ceasing hostilities in that conflict, and Trump claimed that he is ready to influence both his European partners in Kyiv, including the upcoming contacts at the G7 summit. And isn't that later this week? Anyway, he said the recent strikes targeting civilian facilities on Russian territory certainly complicate the resolution process. Putin then tells Trump that no attempts by the Kyiv regime to strike Russia's civilian infrastructure can overturn the situation on the battlefield. Then the president forewarned. President Trump said the Europeans and Zelensky will try to paint the exact opposite picture and will only be able to propose ideas that drag out the conflict and prolong the hostilities. What ideas are those? What ideas does the West represent that would prolong this thing? Well, number one, the Russians have to get out of the Ukraine. That's not going to happen. The 4 oblasts that voted to become part of, overwhelmingly by 90%, to become part of the Russian Federation is not going to be undone. You see how crazy this is? And yet the West and Zelensky keeps pushing that this unprovoked war on the part of the Russians has to be paid for. They have to get out of town. They have to say they're sorry. And the Russians are saying, of course, you're not going to go on killing Russian ethnic citizens of the Ukraine any longer. Since the Maidan in 2014, we've come to their aid. We've given them the choice of staying with the Ukraine or becoming part of the Russian Federation. 9 out of 10 of them said we're Russian by ethnic origin, we're Russian by culture, we're Russian by religion, and we want to be part of Russia. Imagine that. Imagine if everything south of San Antonio, south central Texas, all the way down to McAllen, if you took the latitude of whatever San Antonio was, I don't know what it is, and you took that all the way down to Brownsville, McAllen border, all along the Rio Grande, and 90% of that entire population was of Mexican descent. And north of San Antonio, we were bombing them, killing them, assassinating them, putting sanctions on them. And then the Mexican government came into their aid to protect them. What would we do about that? Would we be so willing to cut loose San Antonio South and let it become part of the Mexican sovereign nation? Would we continue to fight? Yeah, of course, the arguments for both of them, which is what's going on in the Ukraine. But if 9 out of 10 of the American citizens of Mexican descent, of which, let's say, 90% of the population south of San Antonio were of Mexican descent, can you see what's going on in the Ukraine? Zelensky's trying to paint a picture that's opposite. Putin recommended that Zelensky should be told that instead of reburying Nazi criminals with honors, he ought to remember the tragedy of the Holocaust. Yushakov said, it's indicative that responding to these words, Donald Trump spoke about the alliance between our two countries during World War II, and he said this alliance simply cannot be forgotten. Otherwise, he said, the conversation was informal, not without a touch of humor, their greetings being quite warm and reflective of the relations between the two presidents. Yushakov said Donald Trump was touched by the remarks and thanked Vladimir Putin, noting that he was the first foreign leader to call him at the White House. That's because Trump is the first at almost everything. Now, I have often quoted Professor Theodore Postel, one of the world's acknowledged nuclear weapons experts, and he said this in an interview on Friday, that the major nuclear danger facing the Middle East right now does not come from Iran. It comes from Israel. This prominent MIT physicist said this: do not think that Iran is the big nuclear threat. The big nuclear threat, instability in the Middle East, Israel is that threat. So Professor Postel said he found Trump's apparent fear of nuclear weapons somewhat reassuring, describing it as a positive threat. But the expert said that Trump is extremely horrified and afraid of nuclear weapons, which is good. He said he believes that the head of state should be warned that any decision to use such capabilities would open a box that none of us want to see opened up. So I was asked to make a comment on the UFC White House staged cage fight as a part of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration. Somebody asked me that yesterday. What are you going to do on the 250th anniversary of America? And I said, well, remember, America didn't exist in 1776. The American colonies did. The spirit of America did. But there was no American government in 1776. There was a Continental Congress, and they came together, but formally, it was more than a decade later that the United States officially existed, with the last ratifying vote of the 13 colonies to ratify the Constitution of the United States. Someone said, well, isn't that being a little picky? Yeah, probably. Probably is. If you want to think that July 4th of this year is the 250th anniversary of America, that's fine. Because the spirit of America certainly is embodied in the Declaration. Anyway, on June 11th, the U.S. House of Representatives, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. Congress refused to extend the FISA Surveillance Act. Thank you, Congress. I'm going to save that for later. So, across America, and I've seen this on Instagram, I've seen it on YouTube, I've seen it on X, these innumerable editors, columnists, letter writers have decried this June 14th White House staged cage fight as a shameful insult to our nation's 250th anniversary. I halfway agree with them. The question is, which USA are we celebrating? Is it the country that won crucial victories for all humankind, not just America? All humankind in the American Revolution? The America that won the so-called Civil War, the America that won World War II along with the Russians? Or is it instead the wannabe imperial enforcer that since 9/11 has invaded Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Iran, I could go on, killing millions, spending trillions, all the while accomplishing zero discernible good? Which America are we celebrating? The America that my father was wounded in World War II? Or the America that has gone on with this hegemonous, if that's a word, platforms to dominate militarily this entire planet? is what we are celebrating on July 4th, which is what, how long are we? It's less than 3 weeks away or something like that. Is it the land of the pioneers and the innovators that built everything from the Erie Canal to the Transcontinental Railroad, transforming a wilderness into probably at the time the most powerful industrial engine on Earth in about 100 years? Or is it the current epicenter of the history's biggest financial bubble, created by present-day London Wall Street speculators, as the underlying physical economy stagnates and suffocates in this country? Is it the nation whose moral clarity allowed General Douglas MacArthur to transform post-war Japan from a bitterly resentful, defeated adversary into a close friend in only 5 years? Or is it instead this hegemonous manipulator who sees allies like the Ukraine as an expendable, sacrificial pawn to throw at Russia without costing any American lives, as Senator Lindsey Graham has more often than once boasted? Is it the homeland birthplace of Marian Anderson, Paul Dunbar, Robert Frost, all representing the best of human artistic expression, or instead a half century of the rock, drugs, sex revolution that has virtually turned our culture, our music, our art into a cultural cesspool? The historic United States of America certainly deserves a much better birthday commemoration than the spectacle of cage-fighting people beating each other senseless on national television. There should be recitations of the Declaration, recitations from the Constitution, recitations from the Federalist Papers, since the founders included accomplished classical musicians rendering Dvorak's Ode to America, the New World Symphony, one of the first symphonies I was ever introduced to as a child, I think would be more appropriate than the senseless beating of the brains out of these competitors inside these cages. And I, being one who has a very profound respect for a well-functioning central nervous system, which is my job isn't to get rid of migraines. It isn't to get rid of sciatica, back pain, shoulder problems, hip problems, though that's what we do as a side effect. It's to reestablish proper neurological balance inside the human brain, spinal cord, and peripheral system. And when I see two people trying to destroy that, with all the cheering that goes on with it, I have a hard time saying, that's America. Now, there's two Americas here. The one that won the revolution, won the Civil War, won World War II, and the one that since that staged 9/11 has since that very day become the ugly American. And for the other uglier America, perhaps the UFC abomination is the right call. Because if we're going to continue to act like the Roman Empire in its last days, bring on the gladiator games. Because I think you're going to end up seeing a lot more of that. Now, a comment about Tulsi Gabbard. And this recent comment she made, the parting shot. I still, even though she sold out there before she quit, I hope she gets in the 2028 presidential election campaign. But the parting shot set off a firestorm, of course, in the United States and Western media Most of the media, of course, labeled it as one would suspect as Russian propaganda. Others are denying that there's any truth to the story whatsoever. Others who realize the denial would be a pretty wild claim at this point are insisting that all of these biolabs that she talked about are benign. They're essential to the public health of the Ukrainians. And the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry issued their own statement. They said this: the laboratory facilities involved in the relevant international technical assistance programs are diagnostic, scientific, reference laboratories within the public health system, veterinary medicine, and other scientific institutions. The narrative of alleged laboratories for the development of biological weapons is not new. Russia has used it in its propaganda for many years. At the same time, all Russian accusations have been repeatedly debunked at the international level. Well, apparently, Tulsi Gabbard hasn't heard about the debunking, because she went in it the other day at quite some length. But this is also the line that was picked up by Western media. They said this: their labs are not now and were never secret, and they do zero questionable work, said Jonathan Siegel, an alleged expert on biological weapons. He said that cooperation with the United States started as a highly publicized effort to convert former Soviet research facilities that may have been connected to the USSR's covert biological weapons program and involved Russian participation until a decade ago. Senator Mitt Romney issued a tweet calling Gabbard's expose treasonous. Romney, just, even though you're not in office anymore, he issued a tweet calling Gabbard a treasonous person. Tulsi Gabbard is parroting false Russian propaganda, he said. Her treasonous lies may well cost lives. Her treasonous lies may well cost lives. Tulsi was quick to respond. She said this: Mitt Romney, you have called Gabbard a treasonous liar for stating the fact that there are 25 plus U.S.-funded biolabs in the Ukraine, which, if breached, would release and spread deadly pathogens to the U.S. and to the world, and therefore must be secured in order to prevent new pandemics, she wrote. She also said, bizarrely, you claim that securing these labs, or even calling for securing these labs, is treasonous and will lead to a loss of life when the exact opposite is obviously true. The spread of pathogens is what will cause the loss of life, not the prevention of the spread of pathogens. She said he should apologize. Well, I don't think he's going to. While she is making no claims that these labs are in fact developing biological weapons, a suspicion which has been publicly circulated by Russian authorities almost since the discovery of the labs at the beginning of this special military operation back in 4 years ago. She's condemning the blatant attempt by the Biden administration for all that period of time to deny that these labs existed, arguing that the very existence of such labs working on these dangerous pathogens in a war zone could itself be a major problem. Now, Politico reported Friday that the House Rules Committee has set a June 18th deadline, that's this coming Thursday, for legislators to submit any amendments to the National Defense Authorization Act with the aim of voting on the $1.1 trillion defense bill before the July 4th holiday. And of all the atrocities that are included in the House's proposed defense budget, is the one that has to be removed at all costs. You're familiar with it, I'm sure, Section 224, which would codify into law the integration of U.S. and Israeli defense and intelligence capabilities, de facto merging them into one military force. Can you imagine a greater atrocity facing the United States defense concept than to merge one and one together into one fighting force? Representative Thomas Massie has promised to introduce an amendment to exclude that section from the bill. And the section, according to Politico, has been renumbered to Section 219 in the final version voted up by the House Armed Services Committee. It's no longer Section 224. It's now Section 219. So for those who are not aware of the number change, you might be left in the dark a little bit. Now, U.S. independent candidate Diane Sare called on the U.S. citizens here on Saturday, I think it was, to join her in an all-out mobilization to stop this treasonous legislation. Would that be treason? Would it be treason if our U.S. Congress voted to join the U.S. military with the Israeli military as one military? Where do these ideas come from? Would that be treason? To keep our independence as a nation, there cannot be no merger whatsoever with the Israeli Mossad or British MI6, because don't think it stops with one gun, U.S. gun, merging with an Israeli gun, because it's far more reaching than that and reaches into the intelligence. CIA merging with MI6, it's kind of half merged anyway. CIA with Mossad, how far has the Mossad penetrated the CIA? So there's others mobilizing as well. The Council on American Islamic Relations, which is the largest Muslim civil rights organization in the U.S., issued a call for all Americans to contact their members of Congress and demand opposition to these two dangerous Israeli first propositions. Now, this isn't just a Republican move. You want to beware the Senate Democratic snakes who are also backing the proposed merger of the U.S.-Israeli military and intelligence apparatus, so beloved by their AIPAC funders. You can look at the donation amounts that are given to. Holy smoke, it's 46 minutes after the hour already. You can look and see where the AIPAC money is going into Congress, but you can also look and see who's getting the most. And it's shared on both sides of the aisle. According to Politico, 6 lead Democrat co-sponsors of Senate Bill 4615, of which the Section 219 now is the critical one, not 224, include Kirsten Gillibrand, Richard Blumenthal, Adam Schiff, Jackie Rosen, John Fetterman, and even Tim Kaine from Virginia, who has talked up that he might vote against the NDAA as a whole. And their excuse for this treasonous support with such rank sophistry, lies would be a better word, as Gillibrand claimed to Politico that, quote, Congress will have full oversight of the program. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't worry that we turn our sovereignty, our military sovereignty, and all of our intelligence apparatus over to the Mossad because Congress will have oversight. Senator Kaine claims that he supports the proposed merger with Israel as being in the same spirit as the U.S. arrangements with other partner nations such as the United Kingdom, Australia, the Philippines, the ALSA, what's the name of the group? Anyway, so much for Kaine's grandstanding in April when he voted to block arms sales to Israel along with 39 other Democratic senators. What a hypocrite. Oh, well. So, if you aren't aware of it, the National Defense Authorization Act of 2027, with this absurd budget of well over $1 trillion, calls for merging, not just gun for gun, merging the technology. What does that include? All of our sky surveillance, satellite surveillance, all of our artificial intelligence, all of our research, all of our intelligence with Israel. So through section, and they'll probably still mention it as section 224, it's really 219 now. It's entitled United States-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative. Sounds benign enough, doesn't it? Section 224 of the NDAA and Section 622 of the Senate bill have to be stopped immediately. It would already be tantamount to treason to merge military technology and intelligence with any other nation, since there is always the possibility that our so-called partner, their interests might not align with ours. You remember 9/11? And in the case of Israel, the state with which our lawmakers are proposing to merge defense and intelligence capabilities, is simply a fascist dictatorship that is committing genocide against the Palestinian people and is now doing the same thing to the people of Lebanon. Does that mean we would then be sending American soldiers into Gaza to continue the genocide? Would we be sending American soldiers into Beirut to continue the genocide? The American Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA that Tulsi recently left, has just issued an official warning that Israel is engaged in hostile espionage against top American political and military figures at a critical threat level by their standards. Because we found out they're spying on everything. They might even be spying on you. Why would we even consider sharing military technology with such a nation that has devoted itself to the ongoing several-year murder of Palestinian women and children? Despite all this, Representative Mike Rogers and a majority of members of the House Armed Services Committee just voted to merge American military technology and intelligence with Israel technology, including what they call data fusion. Merging AI, merging electromagnetic pulse weapons, merging bio research, which should be read as biological weapons. So the U.S. Senate, in Senate Bill 4615, the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2027, and Section 622, the United States-Israeli Intelligence Sharing Enhancement, is proposing to do that very thing. and neither bill has passed into law yet, and a full mobilization against this must be done. Now, less blatant but equally subversive is the link between American intelligence and Britain's MI6. Our former Secretary of State and former CIA Director, Mike Pompeo, posted on X following the death of former MI6 head Sir Alex Younger, that the then MI6 chief Younger had been present at Langley, Virginia, for Pompeo's confirmation as CIA director, and that the two of them had immediately brought their senior teams together in the UK to plan and coordinate. On what? As soon as Pompeo became the director of the CIA, he brought the British equivalent together, present at his confirmation. And he said, "We have brought the senior teams together to plan and coordinate." On what? I think it should be obvious that surrendering our sovereignty in order to collaborate with the criminal Israeli regime and the British Empire is not in the interest of you or me, and it certainly doesn't make our nation more secure. Because then Israel wouldn't have to spy on us anymore. They would be part and parcel partners to all of our intelligence. Now think about the economic hardship that's been imposed on our people by the illegal war of aggression against Iran, launched jointly by the United States and Israel. Inflation now is at a record high. And why did I say illegal war? Because Congress didn't declare war against Iran. It's gone on for months now. Congress hasn't done anything. So it's an illegal war. Inflation's at a record high. Families are carrying unmanageable levels of personal debt, having to choose between groceries and medication, groceries and gasoline. And on top of this, a lot of Americans, especially the younger ones, vehemently opposed to having their tax dollars spent on murdering Palestinian children. And the policy of torturing, starving, and bombing people until enough of them have been eliminated that the remaining ones finally bend to your will is an old tactic of the British Empire. The British East India Company, we're running out of time, killed millions of people in India through which these same methods. And it's certain that our founders had this in mind when they wrote in the Declaration of Independence that everyone is created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is a standard which all Americans must uphold, particularly at this moment in time. In his 1796 farewell address, our first president, George Washington, warned about the hazards of not pursuing equitable relations with other nations. He said this: "Nothing is more essential than the permanent, inveterate antipathies against particular nations and passionate attachments for others should be excluded." Can you imagine our president today talking like that? And that in place of them, just and amicable feelings toward all should be cultivated. The nation which indulges toward another habitual hatred or habitual fondness is in some degree a slave. It is a slave to its animosity or to its affection, either of which is sufficient to lead it astray from its duty and its interest. The last president ever talked like that was Kennedy. I'm trying to calm down here. I have to leave. The end of the program, I have to leave and take off to go to take care of people, and I need to change the spirit in my heart right now from one of judgment to one of healing. I have a great day ahead of me, new patients, follow-ups, and we have some spots this week, I was just informed, because we still have that half-off special going. The Christmas special still continues. I've seen people from a lot of people are either flying here, like from a new patient last week from Washington, and or they're driving several hours from southern Utah or from Idaho to take advantage of what we do in our clinic. You would need to call 801-523-1890 to make an appointment. I'd be glad to sit down and talk to you for half an hour, no charge. If you want me to take care of you, I will. If you don't, we'll still be friends and we'll just send you on your way. 801-523-1890. You'd be surprised what kind of changes can take place inside your body once that central nervous system is no longer being hampered by torsion, twisting, traction, or other forms of pressure on the brainstem. I'll be back tomorrow, probably picking up the same theme. But I still have a lot of hope. I still hold out a lot of hope for my country, for my fellow citizens, for me and my family, my children, and my great-grandchildren, as well as grand. I was just informed that my youngest is now pregnant. So I think that'll give me 24 grandchildren. And I hold out the best for them. Anyway, we're coming to an end. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. For those of you a part of it, if you'll like and subscribe, it will continue to grow the numbers.